Welcome back to the Beach Pod. Today's guest has sat on the other side of the table, where VC decisions are actually made. Shayanim is an ex-VC startup builder and the founder of the VC Lens, helping first-time founders understand how investors really think, so they can raise faster and on better terms.
Hey everyone, today we have Shayani with us. I would say she's the first guest for us from the VC ecosystem and VC Lens, which she is building. It is very fascinating and I wanted to get her on board. Hi Shayani, how are you doing and how is the VC ecosystem right now treating you?
Hi, Abhishek. Thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast. I think this is a very big opportunity, and well, like for the audience and for also me to understand like what is going on, in the market of your target audience, which is basically early stage founders and focusing on B2C, D2C brands. So I think
Yeah,
that's a big thing for me as well. As far as the VC industry goes, I think it's a good time. Again, I think good times are coming back. Funding is
yeah.
happening, and yeah, very very exciting times. And also with this all AI and new technology which is coming in, I think everybody is quite excited to see what holds uh, like for the future. So yeah,
Right,
quite
right.
excited.
I have a lot of questions loaded up is because I am building an agentic AI tool in performance marketing. So I sat
Mm-hmm.
down for a few raises for the pre-seed, and there's a lot that I faced. So I have much questions lined up. So first question would be, you have from being inside a VC firm to building a platform that teaches how VCs think. Why
Mm-hmm.
is that? What was the moment made you to switch sides?
So I think I was on the founder side first. Then, in order to understand things myself, I moved to the VC side. And
Hmm.
once I've understood both of those, then I think I thought of solving this problem. So, if I have to put it in this way, uh, I think both the industries actually face problems because of this, what I like to call is the VC language problem, which is basically
Hmm.
not understanding the terminology and not understanding the math behind what a VC is looking for in a company,
We can
or what are
also
the
say
metrics
awareness. Yeah.
yeah, awareness also. So I think many good founders are actually not pitching the right thing to the investors which they want to hear, and as an
Hmm.
investor also they are also losing out on good companies, which
Right.
will potentially like do good because they are not able to understand the uh, terminologies that they're
The
using,
language.
which
Yeah.
yeah, the language that they're using. Basically, let's say creative founder will use creative language, something related to
Yeah.
their product, and it is not necessarily that the VC sitting on the other side has that much knowledge about that industry, right? So they sometimes don't understand, or there is a communication gap, which I have faced from both these sides. As a founder, also, I have always faced a communication problem with the VCs. And when I became a
Hmm.
VC, I think I've also always faced that problem from the other end as well. Like there are certain companies which I do not have a very good hold on that industry, but I have lost on that, which is basically a cost of omission for me. I'm losing out on good companies, right? So that's why I think the VC lens as a concept came evolved over time. It first started as I was like basically writing on LinkedIn about my experiences, and that evolved into this VC lens eventually, where I started writing more about the language problem. People started commenting on it. Then I started a newsletter on Substack, which got a very good response,
Nice.
where I sort of explained the ideas or the the what a VC is looking for in the founder for the founders, and I simplified it into their own language, which everybody can understand. So I think all these things together led to a situation where I thought that a platform would be much more beneficial, more beautiful to solve this problem. So that's why the VCLens.com exists.
Understood. When you were saying this, I watched a video yesterday from a very good founder. She has done two exits. She was saying
Hmm.
this, a VC could only relate to problems that they face.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so when when someone is finding to solve a rich guy's problem, which is basically niche market problem, they would be easily funded. So
Mm-hmm.
what I felt that if the market is so niche, like if VC could relate to only his problem, but he can't relate to masses problem, like a lot of small and medium businesses or a middle class market brand. So how could a VC get the mindset of the consumer? Is this product going to work or not? How are they evaluating? Because they have never faced the problem, and though they don't really know that the problem exists or not. So, what is
I would
your
like
take
to
on it?
just yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a very great point, and whoever pointed it out, I think, is very much true. Like very much, there is obviously like a personal bias when it
Yeah,
comes to investing because in
and she
startups,
is particularly talking about San Francisco's VC.
okay, 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 that's
Yeah,
interesting. So, in early stage investing in general, in private equity, there is not enough metrics to uh, determine something very logically and very analytically whether it is going to work or not. There is
perfect.
definitely
Yeah.
a hunch most of the time because, like as investors say that they bet on the founders and not really the company in the beginning, in the early stages, right?
Mm,
So
mm,
even the founder's personality is something that needs to be liked by the VC in the end. That's why they will, kind of, they will
mm.
uh, vibe with that person. So that is also something
Yeah,
that comes into play. So those are definitely true, but at the same time, I think um, the thesis of a VC is also very important, which I think there is a problem. I mean, it's not a problem. Like it's a mismatch in information, uh, an expectation between founders and VC, which happens that every VC has their own thesis and philosophy also, which they focus on mostly. So a
mm,
founder needs to also understand that when they go to a VC, and let's say, for example, somebody is in sustainable startup, or that is something that they're sustainable first company, right? So
right.
there are only handful of VCs who genuinely believe in that cause. So rather
Right.
than spending time, let's say in a VC which is like consumer focused, or let's say profit focused, or let's say revenue focused, you should go to a company with a VC which is like sustainable focused. Like this is like a big important part of their philosophy. So I think there is also a
Understood.
matching problem between like a VC and a founder, which happens. That also leads to this unrealistic expectation that maybe they should like me, maybe they should understand me, maybe they do not have that biasness, because uh, the founders of that VC did not experience those problems first, and like you said, they only have
Exactly.
handful amount of experience. So
Exactly.
that creates a difference.
Right. And also another, I think uh, the question you have, I mean, the answer you have given was pretty much there. I mean, whenever you're going to a meeting with an VC, you obviously, he or she obviously, filters out, is this my thing or not? So then you
Yeah.
enter
Yeah.
into the room of the VC, then, but uh, if all VCs think, so I'm talking about the pre-seed model right now, before
Hmm.
the revenue. After the revenue, they
Yeah.
are anyways open looking at the numbers. But I think it is pretty tough before. I mean, in the pre-seed model, where we have also faced that problem. Nowadays everybody is looking at traction, and at least the beta users, how many have enrolled, is the product is actually fitting in the market or not. So if you, I mean, I majorly saw that segment of VCs. So, what do you think? Is the pre-seed investing is still going on, or it is just the traction? After building the product, you get it, and then you can go to the VCs and pitch.
So it's human nature to sort of compare something which is always relative and not absolute. I'll explain that. Um, so the pre-COVID and post-COVID market, if you see the post-COVID market, if you see, there was a lot of inflation. There was a lot of bubble in the market when it comes to funding, and the amount of funding that was happening at pre-seed seed stage was highly inflated. Okay, and after that, what happened? The correction happened first, so that's why the number of amount of funding that you saw kind of seriously went down. That is one thing. Secondly, because of this bubble, many bad investments also happened, which kind of opened eyes of the VCs also, that like only idea will not work, only founder will not work. I need something more. So I would say it's more of a correction mechanism that has happened, and not that the market has gone bad exactly. That
Right.
the traction, this situation of traction and everything which is coming, uh, that is basically because of the fact that VCs have burnt their hands, and there have been certain companies which has gone bust. So overall, the sentiment has gone down. But having said that, I also think that it is also on another extreme right now, which is like expecting way too much from a company which is not even started, right?
Hmm.
So that is also
Makes
there
sense.
up to a certain extent, but it will balance it out, like in a, let's say, like I'm hoping like by the end of this year, that correction will also happen. Like it was in this extreme, then it went into that extreme, and now it is going to come at a point where genuine founders with, even with an idea, will get funded, and even like not very good companies, even with a small amount of traction, might be omitted. We are reaching there. Overall, the
Makes sense.
Indian, if you have to be like very specific about Indian VC ecosystem, it has not matured enough. It is
Hmm.
maturing with time. So there will be like hit and trials, and you will see a lot of instability in the market. The good thing is that it's growing, so that's a good news for everyone.
But when you say that, uh, you might have also seen that there are a lot of SF based startups which have entered into AI agentic SaaS model, B2B SaaS models. I'll take an example of a company called Prompting Co. They have
Mhm.
raised a pre-seed at a valuation which is more. I mean, I don't remember, but it was more and above than $20 million or $30 million. I've seen a lot of similar startups like that, which is not by YC, but from a private investor. I mean, from a private group. So, how do I mean? See, there are two different geographical variations there. Here in India, if we have to see the product, you have to build the traction, then a VC is believing you. But whereas in the West, it's just the idea, and also I've heard the founder's background also impacts a lot before taking that call. So,
Mhm.
when do you think that shift is going to take to the east? Because it's a
So I think
capital.
it is,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, it is a very natural thing to happen. I think we are just 10 years behind the US when it comes to startup ecosystem. I mean, I've had the opportunity to work in San Francisco, and I've seen the quality of startups that come, and I've seen the amount of money that is there. Because it's like second, third generation of founders who are backing more founders. So that ecosystem
yeah.
is not there in India. I
Get
think
there.
most of the
Yeah.
founders are first generation founders, and also the successful founders, amount of successful founders is low. There have been
Hmm.
lower number of exits. Overall, the money is not there, and the money will
Yeah.
only has to come from the ecosystem for the ecosystem to survive, or
Exactly.
to thrive more. Right now, the money comes from traditional businesses, right? The LPs, which we call
Yeah. Yeah.
the fund, actually is made of the money of the HNIs, the HNIs, ultra
Yeah.
HNIs, and most of the LP profiles are people who come from traditional businesses. So it is very
Right.
difficult for a VC firm to go and explain a new gen business to a person who has like only dealt with traditional business. So
Exactly.
the money is there, but it doesn't come that easily, and it is not easily investable in startups as much as it in the
Yeah.
US. And this will change after one generation turnover. Like all these startups who are like
Yeah.
the founders, when they will become LPs, then they will
Yeah.
basically bet on these startups. So that is what is happening in the US, and that's why the valuation is higher, and people get money at pre-seed, and the money is quite easy to get overall. Also, I think, Abhishek, there is also one thing, that $20 million valuation that you're talking about. I think there is also a little bit of survivorship bias associated with this analogy, right? We don't know how many people
Hmm.
they rejected. There's one person
Hmm.
who got
Hmm.
it. Instead, I'm agreeing with you
Right.
that there is a
Right.
startup out there who got invested this much, but we don't know how many startups got rejected to for that one startup to get invested this much, right? So
Right.
we only see the winners, we don't see the
Yeah.
losers.
Yeah, yeah.
So the amount of startups, the amount of quality startups in the US is also higher, significantly higher than India. In India, it's still
Mm-hmm.
like it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one interesting thing. I've also worked in African market, and they are 10 years
Mm.
behind India,
India.
right? Where India was 10 years back when Zomato and all these companies were coming up. Where India was right now, Nigeria and Kenya are there. So they will
Mm.
take more 10 years to come here. So answering
Mm.
your question, I think 10 5 more years it will take. Like a few exits are required for the Indian startup
Yeah.
ecosystem to revive itself.
Very. I mean, it's a pretty broader answer that you have given. I really like the way you have explained it.
Thank you.
And following up, that's your statement. Most founders pitch products, but you say, good ones pitch the ROI. You know,
Yes.
can you take us deep into that? And what is the single biggest mindset shift founder needs to make before entering into the VC room?
I think founders pitch their company like they're pitching to another founder. Like a founder would pitch another founder, but they don't really pitch the idea that how you're going to make money out of my business, right? How it is going to serve your interest. Okay, you are good,
Mm.
you are nice, you're creating a good thing, but how does it impact your ROIs? How it will help you to achieve your targets? That is something that I would want to founders to learn first and go and pitch it like in their first pitch only, that this is how we are going to do exit and this is how you're going to make money out of us. So
Mm.
this I want founders to be very transparent about, which I think there is still a little bit of hesitance. Two reasons for that. I think founders yet don't understand that exit is a good thing. I mean, that is the only way that you make money. It's not that you have to create a legacy business to make money.
Right. Right.
And second is, I think there is not enough knowledge that how exit happens and how to determine those numbers. How the
Exactly.
valuation happens, how do exit
Exactly.
happens, what terms are there in the exit that happens. Because a VC will ask you when you say that this is the way we are going to exit. They will ask you how you are going to exit, at what terms, to what
Yeah.
companies, at what valuation, what is the form that you're going
Mm.
to take. That information, that knowledge gap is there as well. So that's what I'm saying. Everything is like coming back to that one
It's
single
just
point.
growing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That is miss like communication gap between the two industries.
I know. I
Yeah,
I meet a lot of founders who they don't even know what a term sheet is.
yeah.
So
And
that's the
I'm very
stage.
thankful to Shopify, actually. I think they are educating the masses up to like at a big level,
I know.
which was not possible through any other media. So
Yeah.
I'm good at that. I'm glad that that happened in India, and the way they
I know.
have formatted their show also, it's quite good,
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
convincing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing, if a founder, has 60 seconds with you right now, what should they say? They have a 60
16
seconds
seconds.
time with you. 60
Okay. Hmm.
seconds time with you. So what is the, what I mean, how curated they have to, be to grab your attention?
I think I would like to listen in this order, that what is the market, what is the problem, what is the solution, how you're going to make money, how I am going to make money.
Simple,
That's it. Simple.
right? So if, uh, let's say, if it's a new problem they're trying to solve, and it is going to take, eh, the founder has to make the awareness part first, then build the, maybe the sales part later. If that
Hmm.
long the vision of a founder is, how is a VC going to react for it? Is he ready for it to wait for that long, or it is just his personal, call to, if he's also aligning with the problem, he's going to invest.
So there are many few factors to consider here. First is the basics, like what kind of industry is it? Like, does it really take this much amount of time to discover the product, or like discover the market, or build your niche or anything like that? Let's say, for example, a hard tech company, a robotics company will take at least 4 to 5 years to even like bring their first workable prototype to the market. It takes a lot of
Hmm.
time and effort, right? So that's one. But a SaaS company will take probably a year to do so. So
Hmm.
depending on what exactly niche we are talking about, that's first. Second, like I said, VC's philosophy is also very important here. That what kind of companies do they invest in? Are they revenue first? Do they exit fast in your startup? Like there are certain big VCs which will stay with you, let's say, up to Series C, D, or until exit that you are talking about, right? Big companies will stay. But there are very small funds which will come and exit like 2 to 3 years later. So, depending on what exactly that fund's philosophy is, that is also very important. And third thing, which I would say is, and it's a bit technical, I will not go too much deep in it. But if somebody, like, if any of the listener understand this, there's also a fund cycle which is important. Basically, there is the investment happens from a particular fund in a VC. A VC can have multiple funds, and that
Right.
fund has a cycle of 8 to 10 years. So, depending on at what stage of that fund you are investing, that is also very important. If they're investing at the later stage, they will need an exit faster. If they are investing at an earlier stage, they will need an exit later. So, that also is very like very minute detail to understand, but that's something which is, I think, quite important to understand. Like, how should you, whom should you reach out to? Yeah.
Right. What do you know from a VC perspective again? What do VCs actually evaluate in the first 5 minutes of the pitch? Or and also follow up question to that, they say a lot of the attitude of the founder is more considered in the pitch. What does exactly VCs mean for that? What is the attitude they check out in the pitch by a founder?
Few things, I think, they understand their problem solving capability. Now, I think, I know it sounds very broad in general, like it doesn't sounds very specific, but I can give you an example if I have to elaborate on that. I was in a pitching event once, and there was a person. There were many founders who came with the PPT, and they kind of went through the PPT. Some spoke by themselves, some didn't see the PPT, some were very much invested in the product and everything. And there was one guy
Right.
who came, opened many tabs on his laptop, and he shared the screen. He like introduced his team through WhatsApp. He said that this is my WhatsApp group. These are the people who are working. See, these are the things that we are working on. He scrolled over. Then he went to his LinkedIn profile. He said, these are the things that I've done. And then he went and he said that this is what we wanted to build, but we don't have money. So we have built this first so that we can earn money. And then we will go and build this. But even if we can't build this because it will require a lot of money, this is our plan B. This is how we will earn more money to build this. And these are the two
Right.
things which we have already launched. One is in the European market, one is in the US market, and in India, this is what we are trying. So the entire idea, that problem solving capacity, that like if I get money, it's okay. Even if I don't get money, this is how I'm going to do it. And I'm already doing it. I don't need anybody's assurance. But I came here because parallelly, if you give me money, it is going to make it faster.
I'll build it. Right.
So I think that attitude overall, that I mean, not I'm not talking about that he shouldn't get money or he will the person who get money, but the attitude that I will solve it regardless whatever happens. I don't need
Right.
X number of factors for it to work. So that is something that we look for definitely, like the founder mindset or the problem solving capacity. That if you have a problem, how do you solve it? That is we are betting on. Second, I think
Surviving
founders,
skills.
yeah, surviving skills. So there is a theory, I'm not sure what it is called, Liam's theory or something like that, which says that if a non living object, if it has survived for a long time, it is likely that it will survive more, right?
Hmm.
So it works for startups also. If you have survived, have to thrive. If you have survived for a long time, it is likely that you're going to survive more. So that survivability factor is something which requires that attitude in founders to continuously survive and innovate and survive and innovate. Like they cannot say that I'm not getting funding, so my startup will close. I mean, it happens. I'm not saying that it's something. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
it's possible for every use case, but at least there has to be like an attitude that, ठीक है, अगर नहीं भी चला तो this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to let it die. So that's one. Second, I think at pre-seed we also look for the amount of dedication that a person has towards the business and not the product, because we have seen in historically every company pivots at least 5 times in their life cycle, and pivot in the sense very much like they pivot like x,
I know.
like a to z, they pivot, right? So somebody who's like very very passionate about their product, I think that is kind of a red flag in certain kind of businesses. Like if it's, let's say, a sustainable or a like a, yeah, like something good for the society, if that is kind of a thing, then definitely obviously you need to be passionate about their, about that product or
Yeah,
whatever your mission is. But if
yeah.
it is commercially, it needs to be viable. If it, like, you're looking into a startup which needs to be commercially viable, then detachment from the product also is something which is kind of important that we look into, because that is going to pivot, that is going to evolve. And you, if you're like too strict about it, then it becomes difficult to survive.
When you say this, I mean, when you're saving this, I mean, the first company which has come into my mind was Samsung, being a grocery store to becoming a tech giant right now. So they've started at something and now they've pivoted it to something else. And there are a lot of companies who went to bankruptcy and then they have become a profitable company. So the main agenda here for a founder is to survive in the market, no matter what product he's building, no matter what position he is in. He has to be there and build a solution every day for any challenge he faces.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you must have seen a lot of founders complaining that, oh, that XYZ got funded, and but their product is like so beneath our product. Like we have built a better product than them, but still they got funded,
then build
and
your
they don't even make.
then build your traction, bring in customers for your product if you have a good product with you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a way of complaining what I see from a lot of founders.
Mm. Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, if they complain that way, the answer they have to build is to build the traction to the product. This is what I've heard from VC when he was maybe bashing me from a pitch,
Yeah. So yeah, I think that happens. It's just
right?
how it is.
And also, have you ever invested into any startup, and what is your niche as a VC that you want to maybe invest in the future, or how is it going with you?
I think it's nothing like that. Like personally, I don't think like I'm not very passionate about any industry exactly. Like I've come from a background of finance, so I only see the metrics. I'm very objective
Right.
about a business that way. So any industry which will make me money, I'll invest. It's not a problem for me. But I think it also in startups, in funded business especially, I think it also matters where the wave is, because you make money more in the wave then you will actually make it fundamentally investing in a company sometimes. So it is easier to make money in the wave. Let's say, for example, if there is a IT boom, then you invest in an IT company. If there is a like right now there's an AI boom, so everybody wants a part of it. So there are many companies which are
Mm,
very overvalued right now. So it is easy to make money there. I think going forward, climate tech is going to be something which I am betting on. Like after AI, climate tech is going to be something which I think will do well, and there will be a wave of that as well. So if I have to invest today, I think I've missed the AI this thing, because I, when not doing my own thing, when the AI happened, I was employed. I have invested
mm,
like through those funds, but I have not made my own investment. But yeah, I think if I have to invest myself, then I would invest in like climate tech.
Right. We are building an AI tool as well. Maybe if you are interested, we'll pitch it to you.
Sure, sure, please.
Yeah, and
Always
also,
recommending good stuff.
uh, thank you. And also, what exactly you're trying to solve with VC Lens?
Like I said, right, there is a VC language problem that is there, and
Is it like
I mean,
uh,
access to funds
is
is
it
not a
like a
problem, frankly, which I
right?
don't
Is
think.
it like consultation thing or like what exactly the flow works? How is it? How does it work? If someone wants to,
No, it's a community thing. It's more of a community thing, which gives you
okay,
tools and resources to help you simplify the concepts overall and make your chances of getting funded better. I think
nice.
accessibility of money is not a problem. I think there is enough. I think the number of rejections that a person get, we want to reduce that.
Hmm.
Like, you can contact, you sometimes get meetings also, but I mean, that is very very minute level thing which we can't really get involved in, because that's a lot of like that needs to be like worked upon, like one startup to one startup, like on an individual level it
Right,
needs to be
right,
worked upon,
right,
and at pre-seed stage it doesn't make sense to work that way, because
right,
it will not make sense economically for any company to function that way. What I'm trying to solve is that
right,
number of rejections you get, because the training that you will get after 10 rejections is something that we want to reduce on day one,
right.
so that you don't waste those 10 meetings or 10 leads that you have.
Makes sense. I think it is a very big problem with a lot of founders who are trying to, raise funds. Yeah.
In fact, there is also a very big problem which I am also trying to solve through this, that there are certain companies which are just not investable. It doesn't mean that they're doing a bad business. It doesn't mean that they will not make money. It's just that they will not make enough money for a VC to profit it from, because they're looking for a huge number of, like they're looking for a huge exit, right? At least
Yeah,
when
yeah.
like we are talking about 25x, 10x, 20x, 25x amount of return. And 25x, like for your information, is 2500% return that we are looking for from a startup. There are certain companies which are like very niche. They will make 100 crore rupees business, but they are not fundable by a VC. They are not scalable enough. They are not venture scalable enough. So that is also something I want to create a very distinction for. I mean, I want to create a
Right.
distinction about it as well. Investability versus non-investability is something that I'm also trying to solve. Like there are many startups which come to me and they say that go for other terms of funding. VC is not the only way to get funded. There are other ways of getting funded as well.
I think the work you're doing is, I mean, it is very, I mean, there are very few people that they are actually solving this problem, and I think you're solving a very good problem. And I have a lot of questions to shoot you more, but I think we'll keep it short for this time, and I think we'll do a part two maybe later in the future whenever you find some time with us.
Yeah,
And
yeah, sure.
and by closing this, can you give a can you give the top three advices to a founder who is trying to raise his funds for the first time?
Top three advices. First, like just touching upon the last point, understand whether you're investable or not. And non-investable doesn't mean you're a bad business. It's just that you need an alternative source of funding and not the most popular, which is VC funding. So first, understand that. Don't waste your time in something which will not give you results. Second, don't think too much about the product. Don't wait too much about the idea or the product or something which will like change the world. Every idea evolves over time. Facebook didn't start with the idea that it is going to dominate the world this way. It started with a simple application. So start first, make it beautiful better later. It will
Later.
take time, it will
Yeah.
take time and effort and overall. Third, I think don't do startup for the sake of doing a startup because you want to do it. I think there's inherently certain qualities in a founder which sets them apart from everybody else. That's why there are so less successful founders. So uh, understand that first, whether you are capable of that level of tolerance, and that do you have those minute things in you as a founder. If not, there are better places for you to apply your skills to, because the life of founder is not a very good one. It is a
Right.
very struggling one. It takes a lot of resilience and lot of tolerance and lot of ego clashing that will happen. Uh, I mean, somebody who is like half your age will come and challenge and tell you that you're useless. It will happen many times. So you have to
Yeah.
be okay with that as well. So you have to set aside your ego. You have to have a lot of resilience. You have to have a lot of tolerance for a lot of things. Like, pardon my language, but a lot of bullshit out there. So you have to be okay with that as well. And so yeah, these are the qualities that are required in a founder. Just understand if you are okay with that as well. And if you're running a VC funded startups, you were thinking of running a funded company, don't start it because you cannot tolerate your manager. Because an investor is significantly worse than a manager. They will make your life hell. And you have to live with that for at least five
I
to
know.
six years or till they decide to exit. So
Yeah.
this is not just a better alternative. It is a very, very difficult job to do. Just, but it's very rewarding one, but a very difficult job to do. So understand that and move forward.
When you were saying that, it reminded me of myself. Currently, I'm building my fourth pivot into AI. I was into
Mhm.
real estate. I was into FMCG. I was into service
Yeah,
based. Now I'm building a SaaS tool, and whatever point you said, the ego clashes or like the fund management, everything happened to me since the last 5 years. And I think founder space is not something everyone can handle it. If you found it very
yes.
gloomy, I don't suggest. I mean, I'm sorry, not gloomy. Gloomy, I would say you shouldn't. You should try it, and you'll exit it in the first year
Yeah,
if you're
I
not
think
right for it.
everybody should try it for sure.
Yeah,
Entrepreneurship is a good thing. It will teach you a lot of things, but I mean, the level of, I think being a founder is a job role in itself. I wouldn't
exactly,
compare, like I wouldn't say it's a job role on top of something. Like people say founder CEO, but I think many people can be a CEO. Not
yeah,
everybody
yeah,
can be a founder. You know what I mean?
exactly, exactly. I know, I get it. I get it.
Yes.
And also, the point you've added that investor is more cruel than the manager. It is absolutely true. You're working for someone else right now. I would add another perspective that being a bootstrap company, if you have this ego of not being managed by someone else, I would say be a bootstrap company, build a revenue, and make a profit out of it rather than taking someone else's money and promising them and it's
Yeah, that's, and also I think it is important for somebody who is going for like the कि funding के बिना तो company नहीं चलेगी. Let me tell you something. You
yeah,
anyway, you anyway have to make profit. You anyway have to make revenue,
exactly,
because
exactly,
that funding will also not happen after a point. So you are
exactly,
just letting go of the top layer. You are
exactly.
just sacrificing that salary that you will get for a few months
Hmm.
um, in the beginning, because after that you have to run a bootstrap company the way you have to do business in the end. That's what I'm talking about. You have to
Exactly.
sell your product, you have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
make money. This is going to happen regardless. So
exactly.
funding is important to those people who cannot even build a product without that money.
Right,
But if you
right.
can arrange it from somewhere, like if you, let's say, come from a good family background, or if you like have friends who can loan you money, even with a level of little bit of interest, I think that is also fine. But with this, it becomes it's a lot of
And,
pressure, mental pressure to
and,
actually handle investment.
but to close with, I would say I have seen this that Indian-based entrepreneurs are more, I mean, they are good at building startups without funding. If you see in terms of Zerodha, if you see in terms of Zoho, we have that appetite of building something without money. Maybe
Yeah,
because of the human resources we have, maybe because of the appetite we hold doing things without money. And
yeah,
if the fund opens up, I think India is going to make a way, make better things to the world.
yeah, yeah. That's true.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for your time, Shani, and I would definitely want to do a part two, and if time aligns, we'll definitely do one.
Sure, will do. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting, Abhishek. It was
Thank you so
a
much.
pleasure
Thank you
talking
so
to you.
much for your time. Yeah, it's same with
Yeah,
me. Same with me. Thank you.
great, great.